Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another daily devotion. I'm Pastor Roy Carlin here at Woodlawn Christian Church in Lake City, Iowa, and we do these devotions Monday through Friday of every week. And this particular devotion I am preparing for Thursday, June 16th of 2022. Now, if you do like these devotions, if this speaks to you somehow and you gain some edification from it, please like and subscribe. We'd love to have you back more. Feel free to share this video if you like it, if you gain something from it, which we hope you do. We are working our way through the Gospel of Matthew currently, and we are in the 18th chapter. Today we're going to talk about verses 10 to 14, and this follows up after we're talking about the woe to those that would lead the little ones astray, the children astray, the new believers, but also we're talking about children. I believe that this is talking about both, and God seems to be having Jesus rather seems to be having a great deal of emphasis placed upon the importance of children and the danger of corrupting and leading these children astray. And that's something that the world needs to listen to very clearly, because right now, as I talked about yesterday in my fairly long devotion, wasn't as long as some, but longer than most, we really need to be careful what's going on in the world. We need to be careful that we are not partaking in any way in that process, whether we do it willingly or we are doing it unwillingly and unwittingly, perhaps. Perhaps we are all unwittingly leading those children astray. That would be something we might want to be prayerful about and reflective upon. So he's warning against that don't cause them to stumble, that you'd be better off cutting your hands off, your feet off, you're gouging your eyes, all of that nasty stuff, if you're for fear of leading one of those little ones astray. That you'll end up in the hot spot. Okay, and it kind of picks up in verse 10. He's still a little bit talking about that, and so you'll hear that in the very beginning of this verse. Now, in this body of text that we have here, 10 to 11, or 10 to 14, we have verse 11, which I almost stumbled into there. Verse 11 is not in many translations, including the one we're using today. It is in others, though. The New Century Version is one edition one translation that I do like to use for my morning studies. The New Century Version is my Bible that I have beside my easy chair at home for in the mornings and the evenings, because it's a very current translation. It's very easy reading, and I'd kind of like that early and late in the day. For scholarly studies, I tend to use other translations, but nonetheless, it is in that translation, the verse 11. It's not here in the New Revised Standard Version or the updated edition as we're using here. It's not in the Revised Standard Version either, and I don't believe it's in the NIV either. But here I will include it in the text. The reason it's not included is because it is not in some of the oldest and what's considered the best of the manuscripts, but it most likely was added by a scribe at some point in time in history. I'm going to include it in here, and when I read it, I will raise my finger during the time I'm reading it. So if you're watching the video, you'll know when I'm reading verse 11. It's not a long verse, it's a very short verse, but I do think it helps out with clarifying some things. I do anyway. And you be the judge for yourself. The scholars apparently didn't think it needed to be there. It shouldn't be there because it wasn't in the oldest manuscripts. But I'm going to read it nonetheless. That's just the way I am. So let's look at chapter 18 in Matthew's Gospel, verses 10 through 14, including 11. Take care that you do not despise one of these little ones, for I tell you, in heaven their angels continually see the face of my Father in heaven. For the Son of Man came to save the lost. What do you think? If a shepherd has 100 sheep and one of them has gone astray, does he not leave the 99 on the mountains and go in search of the one that went astray? And if he finds it, truly I tell you, he rejoices over it more than over the 99 that never went astray. So it is not the will of your Father in heaven that one of these little ones should be lost. All right. And first of all, I will say I don't like the way they word in this translation, verse 14. So it is not the will of your Father in heaven that one of these little ones should be lost. I'm not crazy about that wording, but that's neither here nor there. God doesn't want to lose anybody. Which leads us into my personal theology, I'm not a Calvinist, as many people know if you've listened to my sermons and devotions. I believe that Christ came into this world to save all. He came to call all. Now, not everyone's going to respond. Not everyone's going to answer. Not everyone's going to take the free gift that's offered, this gift of grace and salvation. Many are going to reject the gift. Mostly driven out of ego and all of that, as well as being led astray. That's why we don't want to be guilty of leading astray, because we've led astray one of the children. God came into this world to save, and if we've gotten in the way, that's why we're being judged harshly. If we put some doubt or boost their ego, telling them how smart they are, that they do not believe in God. You're an intellectual. Don't believe in God. What are you talking about? We've gotten ourselves in trouble in what we talked about yesterday, that you're becoming a stumbling block. You've caused one of these little ones to sin, and you'd be better off to cut off limbs and whatnot, metaphorically, not literally, than do that. If it's going to lead you astray, if your hand's going to lead you astray, cut it off before you lead one of them astray, as well as yourself. It's a sin to let your ego lead you away from God as well. Remember that. So that gets a little bit contorted, perhaps. But here we start off with talking. It kind of leads into what he's been talking about there with take care that you do not despise, which is an interesting word. One of these little ones, for I tell you, in heaven their angels continually see the face of my Father in heaven. All right. These little ones are important. God's eye is upon them all the time. Now, that about their angels continually seeing the face of the Father, that's a strange one. Does that seem to imply that we have guardian angels? I don't know. Certainly does not say that we don't. It opens the door, doesn't it, to that possibility. That's an interesting thing. Generally, I don't address guardian angels, but this verse kind of implies that it's a possibility. But I think what it really means is that God's eye is on those little children. That's how careful you need to be about not contaminating them, not corrupting them, not molesting them, not grooming them, as we talked about yesterday, as the world seems to be so actively involved in the evil of the world is actively involved in grooming children now, more so than ever, I think. And it's probably easier than ever with the technology we have, the internet and everything else, and even the programming. Look at the children's movies, for pity's sakes. But I'm not going to get back onto that diatribe. Go look at yesterday's video, the one we did for the 15th. Here it is very much the message of this is how important everyone is to God. God doesn't want to lose even one. It breaks his heart that you would walk away. It's like the story of the prodigal son. The father wants that child to turn around and come back. And if he does, it's a celebration. Just like here, there is more rejoicing by the shepherd, just like the father rejoices when the son comes back. The son that went away, the son that was there was always with me. Remember? It's like, hey, son, you are always with me, but your brother, he was dead to me, and now he's alive again. That's how much joy there is in heaven. There is more joy in heaven over one sinner coming back than all of the saints that never left. So that's what I've got for you today. I'm going to leave it right there. Please, 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 if you do like this video, like and subscribe. Make a nice, kind comment. Kind comments only, please. Please feel free to share. So with that, have a blessed day. And please, 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 as I always say, be a blessing to someone today. Take care. We'll see you tomorrow. God bless.